Alright, so we understand what is usage in item category determination. Now we are going to talk about how usage is used in item category determination. We're going to basically elaborate a little bit more on what's usage and how it's used in different scenarios. Now we have seen that there are two ways in which you can use usage. One is programmatic, another is manual. One example I have taken about programmatically affecting the item category usage is service order or RRB. So for example, if you have any kind of resource related billing, it's also called RRB. Now for those of you who are from an SD background, or if you're learning SD, RRB is something that's probably new to you. The simplest way to explain RRB is you go take your car to your car mechanic and give the car to him for servicing and say that maybe your blinkers are not working, or that you need an oil change, or a combination of a couple of things. And then your mechanic looks at the car and then gives you an estimate. Say it's like $250. And he says, it's going to cost this much for the oil filter, this much for the wheel alignment, this much for the blinker, so on and so forth. And then a couple of hours of labor. But finally, the bill that you get could be a little bit different. How is that done? That's done with a process called as a resource-related billing, where all the resources that have been used in completing that service order, remember, it's not a sales order, it's a service order. And that service includes all the components that we have discussed. And once all the components are confirmed and used up, then a process called a resource-related billing runs. The transaction for it is DP19. And what it creates is it associates or summarizes all the items that you have used to perform that service, and then finally creates what's called as a billing request. For an SD consultant, this is a debit memo request. And when SAP creates these line items in the debit memo request 10, 20, 30, it automatically assigns a usage of SEIN. So if you find that for an item, a usage of SEIN is being used, this is done programmatically by this upstream process called RRB. Now this is one example of an upstream process. So in this case, when you have a debit memo request, say DR, and a service item, say a labor or whatever, which has an item category group of LEIS, the item category is TAD. Very simple. But if we have this usage in place, the same debit memo request with the same material, service material, with this usage can determine something else. It could be TAD or it could be something else. It depends on how you want to process how you want to model your business process. And this is done by standard SAP. You don't have to do it manually. It's all done for you automatically. Let's take another scenario. Now this time, I'm going to talk about a scenario where there's no upstream process, but you can programmatically affect the way your usage is being used and how your item category is determined, and why you might have to do a process like that. Now this is an example, say, from the apparel industry. So in the apparel industry, the prices keep varying with seasons, right? So there are two seasons that the apparel industry typically uses: spring, summer, fall, winter, right? Let's say there are a set of prices that are applicable for the fall winter season, or let's say you want to do some kind of special processing on a set of holidays, say Christmas or Thanksgiving or any of those kind of things. That means when somebody buys a product, okay, and standard product, okay, TAN item category, during a special season, say if you're talking about Christmas 25th, maybe from the 18th until the 25th, a particular season, you want to give free gift wrapping, right? It could be some ZXXX item category, and this is free gift wrapping if the customer chooses to on a selection of materials, say. How do you do that? Well, it's the same material. It could be this material, or any material, but this item is relevant for gift wrapping, and that's what you need to tell your warehouse. How do you do that? And it might not be applicable for all materials. It might be only applicable for a select promotional materials. So in which case, you can programmatically in any of the user exits, okay, add a little bit of code, okay, in the user exit, add a little bit of code that checks these dates and then adds a usage of, say, ZHOL. And typical OR plus norm will be 10, but OR plus norm plus ZAll usage is going to determine another item category that's going to be like a signal to indicate your warehouse that you should be using a different kind of packing for this product. So these are programmatic examples of how you can use usage to determine your item category. Now, if you talk about manual ways to do it, one simple example is to not add material numbers. Instead, add material description. So you go to line item 10, don't put the material number M01 or whatever. Instead, just put the quantity and then give a description. Right? When you do that, automatically the system is going to think that it's a text item and then give it a item category of TATX. Another example of manually using your usage is CMIR, or customer material info record. So we have seen this example in the first question, what is usage?